Happy Easter. Really? Happy Easter. Much better. Happy Easter. It's a great morning. It's absolutely stunning. A lot better than last Sunday for those of you that were here. Finally, it feels like spring has come. The angle of the sun has changed. Birds are chirping. Clouds have a different look to them, and it's just wonderful. And one reason I'm glad Easter is here is because I'll stop getting these emails with all these really ridiculous jokes and bit of trivia that I don't really care about too much, but I'll share one or two. Some of these are really bad. You probably heard of them. One I actually kind of like though. Somebody actually sent me, Robert, what do you call a line of rabbits walking backwards? It's a receding hairline, which I got up and had to look in the mirror and say, were they trying to talk to me somehow? I'm not sure. And then people also sent me some trivia, and I knew the answers to these. Do you all know what color is the most popular color for a jelly bean? Red, of course it's red. I mean, why do they make black jelly beans? Who wants to eat a black jelly bean? Red is the favorite. Some of you are raising your hand up. You're the people that are like 8 standard deviations from the norm. That like. And then a little last bit of trivia. How about chocolate bunnies? Now, what part of the bunny do most Americans bite into first? They've actually done research on this. The ears. You're exactly right. How many of you don't bite into the ears first? Do you bite the feet first? Or the tail? So anyway, I'm glad Easter is here. These emails will stop. But for a moment, I want to actually switch from something silly to something actually quite serious that weighs on my mind a lot. And it was captured actually in a recent article by the New York Times, in which it said in essence, and this will come as no surprise to any of you, the New York Times reported that there is increasing hostility in America. Said another way, there's a heck of a lot of dislike going on in this country, and it's more pronounced now than ever before. And I certainly feel it. You take any issue, and you will find groups of people not only polarized around one position or another, but you'll find high degrees of disgust and upset and anger toward those who are not in one's camp. And the issues are too numerous to count. And as I think about this reality, because I find it to be true, I feel very sad that a lot of people seem to be investing a ton of their energy in a lot of muck. And every day I encounter people who, at least on the surface, and I have to watch myself that I don't get sucked into this myself, but every day I encounter people who, at least on the surface, seem more interested in tearing down rather than building up, castigating rather than bridging, criticizing rather than solving, condemning rather than understanding, speaking rather than listening, judging rather than forgiving, yelling rather than reaching out, and being filled with rage rather than seeking some peace. And so that's been kind of bugging me lately. And there's something else bugging me. I'm just kind of venting with you all. It's a private discussion this morning with you all. But there's something else going on in our country that I find disturbing in the midst of this cauldron of anger, as I call it. And that is that our Christian faith is being attacked itself on so many fronts. In fact, maybe some of you saw this week, an atheist recently made some comments that are now viral on the internet. Listen to what this person said. He stated, "Every atom in your body came from a star that exploded. You're stardust. You would not be here if stars had not exploded. And the only way that stars could get into your body is if they were kind enough to explode. So forget Jesus. The stars died so you can be here today." So it's in the midst of this petri dish of negativity and hatred and secular relativism and God denial that's all around us and part of America and where we are today. But this is going to surprise you. I'm actually not all that bummed out about this stuff. And the reason that I'm not all that bummed out about it is because it's in the midst of all this that our need for a Savior has never been clearer. And it is such a time as this that the message of Christ has never been more compelling or important. What a great opportunity. Now, if you think of all the anger and the hatred and the stuff and brokenness that's going on in America, if you ponder how truly messed up parts of our country are, if you think about all the different paths that we can take and all the values out there that are distorted, that are clamoring for our attention, the great news in the midst of this, the superb news in the midst of this, the wonderful news in the midst of this, is that Jesus right now is offering each one of us an amazing way, another life, another way of living. You see, we don't have to be immersed in muck. There is another path open to us, another way of being, a way of being that makes life not only worth living, but purposeful and joyful. How about that is an opportunity? A life that is purposeful, worth living, and joy-filled. A life that sets us on a path to eternity with God and all of those we miss and see no longer. What a deal. And so on this Easter morning, I'd like to spend just a few minutes talking about Jesus and who he was and who he is. And for a moment, I want to talk about what Christianity is and is not. So let's talk for a minute about what Christianity is not. This may surprise some of you. Did you know that Christianity is not about a set of rules? It's really not. Did you know it's not about a 2,000-year-old philosophy? Did you know that it's not a wet blanket thrown on an otherwise fun life? Did you know it's not about an agenda, nor is it about discarding science or intellect or invention? It's not about what clothes you wear or hymns you sing. It's also not a political movement, nor is it some fancy scheme designed to get your money. It's not about a big hierarchy or a big building. It's not about being on the left or being on the right or being somewhere in the middle. And it certainly has nothing to do with what denomination you're in. Christianity has nothing to do with any of these things. So what is it? What is Christianity all about? It's actually extraordinarily simple. Christianity, at its heart, is all about a relationship. It is about a relationship that will change your life. A relationship with the one who made you. But unlike any other relationship we have as human beings, this relationship is a relationship that cannot be broken, depends on absolutely nothing you do or don't do, and is in fact eternal. There's no other relationship like it. And there's one other thing, and one thing only, that lies at the heart of this relationship. There's only one thing that lies at the heart of this relationship, and never let anybody tell you anything different. And what lies at the heart of this relationship, which is at the core of our Christian faith, is an unbounded, unlimited, inconceivable, indescribable, limitless, enfolding, all-encompassing, overwhelming love. What is Christianity about? It is about a relationship of love. Period. No add-ons. That's it. And in your life, if you have ever been in that place where you have searched for meaning, or struggled to wonder what your purpose is, or sought to get at what that inner gnawing was about that just would not go away, or you felt a void, or that something was missing, or that you had unmet needs, or you felt this hunger that nothing would satisfy. Do you know what all that stuff is? It's the sound of God knocking at your door saying, I want you. I want a relationship with you. Come and see, I have another way of living to consider that will change everything in your life from top to bottom, from inside out. For a moment, listen to just a sampling of some of the things that Jesus said about what your life will look like and what this relationship is all about if you embrace it. Listen to what Jesus says about life with a relationship with him. Jesus said, "You have heard that it was said, 'You must love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I say, love your enemies and pray for those who harass you. Don't judge others. Why do you see the splinter that is in your brother or sister's eye, but you don't notice the plank that is in your own? Don't worry about your life. Be encouraged. Ask and you will receive. Search and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. Don't be troubled. Trust in God. Trust in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. I give you a gift. I give you a gift of peace. Peace of heart. Peace of mind. A peace the world cannot give you. I have come to set you free, free from all that is holding you back, free from all that limits you, free from all that prevents you from reaching your dreams. You are free to be who you really are. If you've seen me, you have seen God. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And in the world you will have much distress, but be encouraged. I have overcome the world. Happy are people who grieve, because they will be made glad. Happy are people who are humble, because they will inherit the earth. Happy are people who show mercy, because they will receive mercy. Happy are people who make peace. And I've said all of these things I have said to you, so that my joy will be in you, and your joy will be complete." Pretty amazing relationship. And just to keep in mind, Jesus didn't just say things. In fact, I want to say for a moment what a current day theologian has to say about Jesus. You may be asking, well, who's a theologian? Well, I'll give you one, for example. You ever heard of Bono? The great theologian Bono of the band U2 said the following in a recent interview. An interviewer asked him, "Christ is one of the world's greatest thinkers and teachers, a model for morality. But Son of God or God in the flesh, that's far-fetched, isn't it, Bono?" And Bono replied, "No, that's not at all far-fetched to me. Look, the secular response to the Christian story always goes like this. He was a great prophet, a great teacher, a great moral guy, obviously really interesting." But if you think about it, Bono says, Christ does not allow you that. He does not let you off the hook. Christ says, "I am God in the flesh." So you were left with a choice. Either Christ was who he said he was, or he was a complete nutcase. Bono goes on, "I'm not kidding here. I'm not joking here. He either was or he wasn't. But I have to say that the idea that the entire course of civilization for over half the globe could have its fate changed and turned upside down by a nutcase, now that is a far-fetched idea. Bono says. But Jesus wasn't all about talk. He was about action. And he engaged in extraordinary actions to show us what living a life in a relationship with him is all about. Throughout the Gospels, which record Jesus' day in and day out life, the most amazing, incredible things happened. Jesus heals people from tormented thinking, physical ailments, long-standing diseases. He frees people from crushing guilt, profound senses of failure and inadequacy, and the prison cells of negative and distorted thinking. He confronts injustices and those whose hearts are made up of the cement of self-centeredness and godlessness. He restores broken and battered relationships, embraces the person who is on the most outside of it all, and gets people in touch with purpose, meaning, and lives of service. He brings dead people back to life, feeds thousands of people with minuscule portions of food, and turns a very, very, very dull wedding reception into a party to beat all parties. He forgives people who seek and desperately need it. And on Good Friday, when he died on the cross, he took care of our sin and our separation from God once and for all. He outlines what integrity and character involve. He shows us what true wealth is all about. And through it all, he demonstrates to the world that there is only one thing that matters. Only one thing that matters. Love. As you've heard me over and over and over say at this chapel, Jesus' fundamental message is love trumps everything. And after all of this, there's more. God does something amazing. God says, so you still don't believe who Jesus is? So you still don't trust him? So you're still not sure if you should believe in him? You're still not confident if he is the way and the truth of the life? You still are listening to the skeptics and God deniers? I've got something to show you, God says. And in Luke, it says, very early in the morning on the first day of the week, the women went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they went in, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus, and they did not know what to make of it. And suddenly 2 men were standing beside them, and the women were frightened and bowed their faces toward the ground. But the men said to them, why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here. He has been raised. And on that first Easter morning, God raised Jesus from the dead. And in the days that it followed, we know of at least 11 different occurrences in which the resurrected Jesus showed up and encountered over 500 people. Why? Why would God do this? Well, for starters, God raised Jesus from the dead to show the world who is ultimately in control, no matter what it looks like, even in the midst of despair and death. Who is control? Who is in charge? And God raised Jesus from the dead to help us know that ultimately we have absolutely nothing to be afraid of, especially we have no reason to be afraid of death. And God raised Jesus from the dead to show us that death is not the period at the end of a relatively short paragraph called life, but rather the launching point into something incomparably beautiful, wonderful, and eternal. God raised Jesus from the dead to proclaim to the world that while there have been and there will continue to be great teachers with great wisdom worth listening to, there is only one that is God himself, and only one that God raised from the dead. God raised Jesus from the dead to remind us, each and every one of us, that God is not somewhere out there or over there, but in fact is right in here. And that the same power that God used to raise Jesus from the dead is within you. Do you believe that? The same power that God used to raise Jesus from the dead is within you. God raised Jesus from the dead so that when we would recall that when we are mired in guilt, as we sometimes are, or mired in regret or anxiety or despair or other places that impede us from living fully, that God is here to set us free with brand new beginnings every day, that we need not buy into the promises of empty materialism, nor get into the polarized muck of America, nor get worked up over all kinds of things. God raised Jesus from the dead to say to a wayward and sometimes very self-absorbed humankind, there is another way to live, and there's another way to die. And we get to this other way, my friends, through a transforming, life-altering, hold-on-to-your-hat relationship that will knock your socks off and change the reasons that you get up every morning, why you do what you do with your life, how you look at everything, how you relate to other human beings, how you think, how you feel, where you invest your energy, and how you approach life in those passages that hurt. And God raised Jesus from the dead so that you and I would seek out and embrace and hold on to a relationship unlike any other that changes everything. And so in conclusion, on this glorious Easter morning, please take a moment or two and take stock of where you are with Jesus. Know that whoever you are, wherever you've been, whatever you have done, Jesus' door is open to you right now because God raised him from the dead and the tomb was empty. And this is true not only for each and every one of you, but like it or not, it is true also for every person whose views are 100% opposite of yours. For those who view Easter as simply a sentimental occasion, and even those who proclaim that the stars died so we could be here today. Happy Easter. And let us pray.